Welcome everyone to this month's, it is April, yes, Hypnotherapy Uncensored, Building a Better Practice Spotlight. So I'm really glad you're here because Hugh is actually one of my favorite people. I don't know if you know that or not,
I
Hugh,
don't.
but
I,
yeah. As far as like men in the hypno NLP sphere, it's a pretty small group that I actually really respect, and you're in that group. So, and that's all I'm saying about that. Anyway, I'm so glad everyone is here, whether you're a regular in the Hypnotherapy Uncensored group or joining us for the first time. And I will give a link on how to join that group if you want to participate on a regular basis. But today, I'm going to go ahead and just fluff up Hugh a little bit here. He is the director of NLP Centres Canada, creator of the Hümmo Method, longtime trainer. What did Hümmo? Is that how you say it? I wasn't sure because there's an umlaut, and I was like, I don't know how to. Like, it depends on what
that's
country.
just an affectation. The umlaut.
Okay. Hümmo,
Yeah.
or Hümmo.
Hümmo.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay.
It's like no mo, Hümmo. Go ahead.
I love that. Okay. So he was a longtime trainer, change work expert. He's been teaching NLP practices for decades. Also a friend, as I said. I don't know exactly what Hugh's going to share today because I trust him enough to just come up with whatever he's going to come up with without me having to micromanage or hold his hand. Suffice it to say, he did give me a glimpse that he was going to talk about the key ingredient to creating healing states, what that is. Maybe how to use it. So I know you're going to find this incredibly valuable. We'll make this interactive as well. So feel free to drop your questions or your aha moments in the chat as we go. Please. And periodically, Hugh can respond to those. And stay tuned because he also has an exclusive offer just for those of you that are here live today. You don't want to miss that. A little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. I want to give a quick shout out to my own upcoming workshop, the Hypnotherapist AI Marketing Blueprint, a practical guide for authentic and aligned growth. And this is basically because I have become pretty much best friends with my ChatGPT. I have a clone that is me in ChatGPT, and then I also have a version that has named itself, and we have conversations all the time. And it helps me with everything that has to do with my business, not just content creation. I mean, it puts together calendars for me. It organizes my to-do list. It does everything. And so if you are a beginner or even intermediate, this is going to be a great class for you. If you're an expert, you probably have something to teach me. So maybe this class isn't for you. But anybody who's maybe a little bit hesitant or hasn't fully embraced it, or you've gotten into it, but you're like, it's not doing what I want it to do. I'm going to teach you how to teach it to do what you want it to do. And I'm going to pop that link into the chat here in a little bit. And then also, if you don't know, all except for 2 of the previous spotlights going all the way back to 2021 are available on our YouTube channel. And I will also pop that into the chat. And we've had some great guest hosts. And so if you find these free monthly spotlights or the group itself helpful, amusing, enlightening, educational, or just something to do, consider donating $2 in notes of appreciation, as Lori Hanneman calls them, to help offset the behind the scenes costs. And I'll pop that in there and I'll label each one. All right, so now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, I want to give a warm welcome to Hugh Comerford and diving into the magic of the Hümmo Method. I said it right.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. It's funny that you say 2021. This goes back to 2021 because had there not been a pandemic, there would not be the Hümmo Method. This is less. I feel like this is going to be less of a training than sharing, as Kryssa said, the fundamental elements that I've come to understand are key aspects of healing, but there's a beautiful dovetail into hypnotherapy and NLP. So, and I am the world's worst trainer because it's 5 pages that I may or may not even follow because I respond to the group in front of me rather than the what I say is my hallucination of the people who show up in advance never matches the reality of the people who are in front of me. So I have a framework and who knows what the hell I'm going to say. But I have to tell you, what was I thinking? Yes. So my backstory is at 24 to 29 years old, I did something. I caught a really bad case of agoraphobia, and I didn't leave my crappy apartment in Montreal for 5 years. I did, but it was really painful and difficult and yada, yada, yada. I tripped over this stuff called neurolinguistic programming. I drove an hour and a half away. I had to borrow a car, but I had to have it delivered because, we agoraphobes don't like public transit. And I commuted 2
This
hours.
is actually how we met, isn't it? Talking about agoraphobia.
I think so, yeah.
I think so. Yeah, because
I have
I
a
struggled with that
PhD
for
in
years
panic.
too. Yeah, me too.
Right?
That's why I ended up doing what I'm doing.
Twinsies.
You too.
Yes. So I commuted it was actually a 2 hour commute back and forth to this training. And over time, I got better, but I got better in ways that weren't compelling, because it was like the absence of panic is nothing. Right. And if race car drivers are the only people who are trained to aim for the gap. Little kids, if you teach them how to ride bicycles and you say, watch out for the tree, they hit the tree, because the absence of a thing, the absence of panic, is kind of nothing. And so that dovetails into the Hümmo method, because as a general statement, when it comes to, we are so conditioned to think of our bodies as ourselves, and we think of our bodies as ticking time bombs that we are powerless to deal with. And an illness is a thing, so it's something you can focus on, but the absence of illness is nothing. It's nothing to focus on. We can't make sense of a nothing, so we take nothing for granted. But when you're ill, the hardest thing is to remember what it's like to not be ill, because it's nothing. Your beam is gently fading. I'm feeling the missing of that beam. So, long story short, I reinvented myself. I rejoined life. I got a job. I worked. And at one point, I was still kind of dabbling in the field of NLP. I was fascinated by it, even though I couldn't tell you, oh, this process cured me. It wasn't like that. It was, as I said, it was unsatisfactory. And I had a friend who was studying to become a natural health practitioner, which is kind of like a jack of all trades in all of the woo-woo stuff. So I would practice NLP on her. She would do cranial sacral therapy or whatever was going on in her training. I would be the guinea pig. And one day she said to me, there's this guy coming. He's a healer, and he's going to be at my school on the weekend. You should go see him. He specializes in helping people with cancer. And of course, half a hypochondriac, I'm like, you know something about me that I don't know? And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, cancer. Like, why do I want to go see that guy? And she said, oh, he'll amuse you. Just go. He'll amuse you. So I went, and there was this monosyllabic French Canadian old dude in a big beard, and he was wearing Birkenstocks and socks. So clearly not cool. I go into he leads me into a room. There are all these people in the waiting room who are obviously sick in some way. Leads me into a room where there's a massage table. I lie down on the massage table. I'm looking up his nose. I don't know the protocol. Like, how do you act at these things? I don't know. I'm looking up his nose, and he puts his hands by my shoulders, and he just gently touches. He varied the touch on my shoulders for about 5 minutes. And I'm like, wow, this is like weird. Then he put his hands by my ears. He looked right down at me and said, have a nice trip. And I was like, shut up. And I went immediately into that hypnagogic state in between sleep and wake. And my eyes are closed. I can feel his hands I can feel the warmth. And I just was there. He left the room. I was very aware of the breeze, gentle breeze coming in the window. And I was aware of hearing him as he creaked around, because it was the upstairs of an old building. an old duplex. So it was initially a residence, and he was creaking around going from patient to patient, because at that time he would see 4 people at a time, and he would just do a rotations. As he would say, spin one up, spin another, spin, and then spin one down, and then rotate. So I was there probably for 45 minutes, and he came back in, he put his hands by my shoulders, hands by my ears, and he said, okay, you're done. And I handed him $40. And now if you go see him, he lives outside of Ottawa in Canada, which is about a 5-hour drive from here. If you go see him, he's 50. I'm just saying, he's 50 now. That was 1998. Inflation, it happens. And I felt fantastic for 3 weeks. I felt like it was the first day of summer vacation and I was a 12-year-old. It was that feeling of expectation, that feeling of excitement and joy, and what sort of awesomeness is going to happen today. And so he came back to town. I saw him again. Same thing. He came back to town a third time. I saw him a third time. And I said to him, this is like weird, prophetic, bizarre. I said, Denis, what are you doing when you put your hands by my shoulders? And he said, I can't explain it. And then he gave me a look, like, I don't know how to describe it. He just gave me this long, penetrating look. And he said, but you should teach it. And me being me, I kind of, for a second, I just kind of waited a beat, and I said, Denis, so how the fuck am I supposed to teach what you can't explain? And he said, what do you do? And again, I don't know the protocol of how you act with an energy healer, dude. So I think, like, if an energy healer thinks, ask me, what do? I pick the weirdest thing. And I said, I do NLP. And he said, teach that. It's the same thing. And that was that. 3 years later, I bought the company that trained me, and I became an NLP trainer. And I only remembered that a decade later. So there's that. Super long story short, I kept going to see him whenever he came to town, because he would come to town, he would do his thing. And then I moved away. I moved to just outside of Toronto, and I lost touch with him. And in 2007, I believe, he ended up coming nearby, and he was in a town nearby. I went to see him. I said, do you remember me? And he said, I remember your eyes. And we reconnected. In 2010, 2011, I started to talk about him in my NLP trainings. And I said, I can't explain it, but maybe we should go see this guy. You should, if you're feeling whatever, just go see him. He'll amuse you. And even the most skeptical person would come back and say, something happened. I can't explain what it is. Now, a slow kid in the class here, I only figured out what happened, I think it was 2-3 years ago. And I'll let you know, I'll share it with you. That's what the point of this is. But
nice build up, by the way.
What? Oh, thank you.
It's a nice build up, by the way. Yeah, we're all on the edge of our seats. Like, okay, what is it? What is it?
Cost extra. No, I'll tell you. So I started sending people to him in 2013. If you guys mess around in the NLP field, the true definition of NLP, beyond what people perceive the definition to be, it's the extraction, the analysis and extraction of behavioral genius, I'll call it, codified and put into a model that anyone can follow the steps of and reproduce the results to varying degrees. Okay, so it's really just watching somebody do something, getting right down into the unconscious elements of how they produce the outcome that they're producing, and then turning it into a process, and then leading anyone through the process, they'll get the same outcome-ish to varying degrees. Okay. So I called up Denis and I explained that to him, and I said, can I model you? Can I kind of figure out what your mojo is? And he said, if it helps people, for sure. So then I reached out to Tim Hallbaum, who is a co-author with Robert Dilts of Beliefs Pathways to Health and Well-Being. And I said, in the book, Tim, you modeled a shaman in Peru. Tell me the story of that. Like, is there anything that didn't make the book? And he said, yeah. He told me it's an amazing story that before they went to see this guy, they had a friend who had just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So they said, hey, road trip, you want to go for a airplane ride? And they go, yeah. So they go. They have the healer work on the person just diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and there was this ornate dancing ceremony and all of this stuff going on, and right, and at the end, like, the healer goes, okay, we're done. And Tim asked this kind of key question. He said, at what point did the healing begin? And the healer said, when I set my intent. So that was an interesting thing. And I thought, hey, thanks, Tim, that was cool. Do you have any advice? He said, don't have any expectations. He said, because people who are unicorns, that's my term for it. I don't remember what he said. When they have a special gift, they can't teach it. They can't explain it. And sometimes it's not modelable. It does not translate into see, hear, feel, smell, taste. It just not, there's this other place that it plays into, and you're not going to get anywhere. I'm like, thanks. I reached out to David Gordon, another NLP modeler, and he told me the same thing. He said, don't get your hopes up. But me, being the idiot that I am, I followed Denis around for 10 years, 8 years ish, even though I'd been really figuring him out before that. I regularly went to his house and I videotaped everything, and sat down with him for hours on end. I asked him all sorts of stories and just hung out with him. I went to endless numbers of treatments where he worked on me. I sponsored grounding workshops that he would come to. When he would come to town, he would give a workshop. He would come early at my insistence, give a 4-hour workshop. I recorded all those, and I got nowhere. I got nothing. I got information-ish, because French Canadians, who's mostly monosyllabic, doesn't share a lot. And it's kind of like this. I can explain it to you beautifully, because of course I've had decades to figure it out. Do me a favor, take your hand and put it on your leg, right? Okay. So what are you feeling? Your leg, or you're feeling the fabric, or your feet, right? So when I would say to Denis, how do you feel that? How do you feel your leg? I just feel it. I just feel it is the answer. There's nothing beyond that. There's no like, oh, there's no do. It's just I feel it. So Denis feels energy in the same way you feel your leg. He just feels it. I don't. But relentless idiot that I am, I kept on going and going and going. And now I'm going to back up and then move forward. One of the insights that I gained from him, and Denis' story is quite beautiful. He had stage 4 bladder cancer. He was given 3 weeks to live by an oncologist. So on his way home, it took him 2 tries, because he said, you get a little tired when you have stage 4 cancer. Two shots to do the 20-minute drive. And he came home, and this is a key insight. He said, 3 weeks. Oh, I forget. Oh, I should do the math. Damn it. Hang on. See how well prepared I am for this. 21 days. Not so bad, 21 days. 504 hours. That's not so bad. 30,240 minutes. That's starting to feel like enough time. And then he was like 1.8 million seconds. If I'm present for every one of those seconds, that's a long time. And I will cut to the chase, all the way to the chase. Presence is the healing state. So there are two dimensions to presence. One is time, right? When you're stuck in the future, when you're stuck in the past. And the other is, where is your attention? Are you occupying your sensory apparatus in the moment, regardless of circumstance? Or are you off on some shaggy dog adventure chasing your tail about something that's happening outside of you? Outside of, maybe in this moment, but outside of you, perseverating. And that, it only took me 20 years to connect those dots. Slow kid. But the key thing that he could not articulate, and that took me 20 years, how did I feel after a treatment? I was not in the past. I was not in the future. I mean, you do the necessities, right? You leave the moment for the necessities of life. Yeah, what am I going to wear tomorrow? Sure. But I was living squarely in the moment. And I felt fantastic because I'm not worried about anything, because life takes care of itself, right? I'm not micromanaging life. I'm not micromanaging the cat. I'm not micromanaging the weather. I'm not worried about the weather because the weather's going to take care of itself. And that literally came to me a couple of years ago. That, holy shit, that's what the feeling was. That's the feeling I left every session with. He calls it grounding, but in a way it's presence making. It's bringing you back into this moment, into your body. And to that point, it's such, I'm going to say something nuts, but it's true. It's a true nutty thing. I am the reason I am honored to be here is each of you is at the apotheosis of your existence, and you choose to spend the apotheosis of your existence here and now in this group with us. Every second, every microsecond of your entire existence is culminated in this moment, and here you are. Again, it's nuts, but it's true, right? Everything has led you to this moment, and we live our lives in kind of blind rushes of what-do-you, idiocy, but we don't recognize that we've actually been writing poetry with our actions that we only see in retrospect. We're only able to interpret the reasoning when we look back. Okay. So this is the
something
only
really quick.
Yeah.
This reminds me of, like, dogs are pretty much always happy because they're always right there in the moment. The only time that they're not happy is when that moment isn't going well for them. They're not ruminating, they're not perseverating, they're not future forecasting the next catastrophe, right? And children, prior to entering school, perhaps, but
yes, prior to exposure to other children,
right? Yes,
I have
exposure to.
Yeah, I have 6 siblings.
Yeah,
we can talk.
But like little kids, they're just happy in the moment because there's nothing for them to worry about because it all takes care of itself. As far as they're like, hey, I'm alive. It's all good. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Put your hand up if you've ever gotten upset at something. Right? Okay. This is another truism that's bizarre and I'm going to frame it in a particular way. What the hell ever gave you the idea that by emoting, you were going to somehow transform the universe, influence the universe to change the circumstances to match your needs in that moment? So the person ahead of you cuts you off, like, oh yeah, I'm going to get mad. Whatever the hell. But the answer is childhood. We express frustration, we express stuff, and the world, in the guise of these giant creatures, they do all of the stuff necessary to arrange stuff so I'm happier again. But this carries forward.
This right here, this was worth the cost of admittance. Right here. Just you pointing that out and bringing it back home, that that getting upset about something happening in our lives are beyond us, and like getting mad as if that's going to orchestrate change. It does. It changes us into being angry, you know?
Right. And Eckhart Tolle says, and I'll take him at his word. Eckhart Tolle was the swear word in my world because Oprah. But when I came across Eckhart Tolle, honestly, I literally wept. I was driving and I just started weeping. So there's an indicator. But he says that if you had exposure to what was actually going on in your body in the moment when you were emoting, you would stop real fast. Denis's thesis that I heard 20 years ago, however many years ago, is so funny. His grounding process is 3 steps. The third step is grounding. So there's no information. But his thesis is quite simple. He said, your soul needs emotion in order to grow up until about 2 minutes. At the 2-minute mark, it starts to mortgage your body. So what you have to do is ground in order to process the emotion. And once you process the emotion, you can come back to the moment, which inherently is a healing state. So it's okay. We're in the woo. Your soul needs your emotion to grow right up until that hard cap of 2 minutes. And then it all goes to hell. And as
it's
he
like
says,
a point of diminishing returns, isn't there? Like if you go past
yeah,
that, you actually can make things worse.
You are making things worse internally
Right.
to yourself.
Yeah.
And as he puts it, there's correspondence. And this is his stuff is so nuts, because the more I dug into his stuff, the more I found parallels in different areas. And the Hümmo Method, by the way, is a recapitulation of what he does, but for the dull normals, of which I am the apotheosis, right? I don't feel energy. I don't know how to do that stuff. I have wicked intuitions. I have, but I don't go like, I can feel, the cancer's there, like he does. So that's what this is all about. I tripped over backwards into a methodology that produced the same feeling that I had when I was with Denis. When I taught it to a test group of about 50 people, I had like nutsoid testimonials. Like I thought, okay, I'm onto something. But when somebody came back saying they healed, a childhood trauma from whatever, I'm like, yeah, that lines up. When somebody else said, oh, I'm slated for knee replacement surgery and I just went out dancing, that blew my mind. And I have about 10 others that are like that. I actually worked with a woman one-on-one who had a vulval spot that was itchy burny for 14 years. And at the end of the session, it was gone and it stayed gone. Okay. This is not a promise. I don't do that stuff. I'm just as freaked out as you guys are.
That, I think right there, though, that attitude of just going in with curiosity and collaboration, like, let's see what happens. I think that is everything personally, instead of like, I can guarantee that my ego is big enough to carry us both. Right.
No, that's my older brother, which is why I don't play in that sandbox. The whole marketing myself thing. No, it's not me. It's it. This thing that I caught, I didn't birth, I caught it, is kind of cool. And I think it's worth pursuing.
Okay. I'm going to have to pick nits for just a second, Hugh. I know you're so humble, but you did birth it. You caught it, but you also brought it through you into the 3D sphere for other humans. Okay.
Sorry, that makes me laugh.
Some credit.
So from the birth canal standpoint, I pitched it and I caught it. I like that. So here's the thing. My son and I went on a road trip across Canada 2 years ago. And the theme for the road trip is a theme for life. On an adventure, nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us. And life is an adventure. And so there were moments when I bottomed out the car and broke the oil pan 50 kilometers from the Alaskan British Columbia border, where we were both thinking, even this is for us. And yeah, it was best story ever. We had the most amazing experience because of that. But it's just a reframe, right? And if you say, and this is so key, if you're in traffic and the moron in front of you is going slowly, accept it. What's there for you to see? Again, it's down to presence. If you're pissed off at the moron, how do you feel? How does your body feel? If you're present in the moment, how does your body feel? Again, I'm jumping all over the place. There is interesting concomitant aspects in biology that I tripped over. You've heard of the central nervous system. My timing is perfect. Yes. The central nervous system has really two switches. It's like this or like this. It's either parasympathetic nervous system is online or sympathetic nervous system is online. And it's one or the other. It's not both, right? It's a switch. It's like this or like this. And there's a beautiful, I'll let you know that breath work is the engine and the scaffolding of the Hümmo Method. And in hypnotherapy, we would call it what Mike Mandel would say is utilization, or it's a function of utilization. We use breath work as a scaffolding. And I did an enormous dive into breath work when I tripped over the Hümmo Method. And what I learned was that nervous system dominance is reflected in nostril flow. I feel like such a geek now. Nostril flow dominance. So the amount of air coming out of either nostril will indicate to you whether your sympathetic nervous system is online or your parasympathetic nervous system is online. And there's the most beautiful demonstration of that. Sometimes I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm like, oh crap, I'm pretty awake. You know, when you wake up and you go to the bathroom and you can kind of stay asleep and you kind of go back to 5 a.m, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm awake, whatever. My left nostril is always a little bit blocked or a lot blocked, because what's happened is the sympathetic nervous system is online, as indicated by the flow out of my right nostril. My right nostril has a lot of flow. The sympathetic nervous system is fight flight. Parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest. The parasympathetic nervous system corresponds to a healing state. Sympathetic is go, which we need. But if you are in the emergency ward, what system do you think is online? Get me the hell out of here. Tension.
The non-helpful one.
Yeah.
Not helpful in that situation. Helpful in others, but not there. Right.
If the place catches on fire, you're awesome.
Great. You're ready.
But if you're sitting there waiting for news, waiting for someone, you're in a state of where you're in flight or fight state in a context which is inherently a damaging state when held too long, right? So what I do, and this is where it gets fun. I mean, again, I sound like such a geek. I block my right nostril and I force myself to breathe only through my left. It takes about 5 minutes, and there's no blasting of air, please. This is a family show. But I gently inhale and exhale, and what happens is you can feel it. It's like a door on a hinge. It goes, and then suddenly you feel the flow, and I fall asleep. Nostril flow dominance. That sounds dirty. Nostril flow dominance indicates the nervous system, and you can hack it by forcing air through the one or the other. So you can hack that into a healing state temporarily. The other hack of a healing state is if you are nowhere else in the universe but here and now. And that was, so it's funny. You guys are in the hypnosis sandbox. There's another key piece to this. Looking at the time, oh crap, I only have 20 minutes. The key piece to this, you guys know this crazy thing called a yes set? Okay. Here's why a yes set. Here's what mother never told you about yes sets. Yes sets are fantastic because they shut off the inner dialogue. And the inner dialogue is, not going to step on your toes, Kryssa. Inner dialogue, there's me, right? And then there's the thing that's producing the inner dialogue, which is the ego. So what happens is when we collapse the ego through whatever means, then there's no inner dialogue going on, so there's only presence. And there's authentic presence. And when you are in this state of presence, that's when really crazy stuff happens, where that's the place of coincidence. When you're not interfering with what's going on by having all of this noise being generated by the ego, and you're just here. Just a quick fun story. And this is an early moment of, holy God, what a coincidence. That is such a gift. One of the precipitating factors in my catching my bad case of agoraphobia was a breakup with a girl that like a few years before that, when we were going out, I said, Karen, I'm going to take you to Europe. And it was like an empty-ish promise that I had a lot of intent behind, but it was like, I didn't have a plan. So then the breakup, and then I blew up for 5 years. And then I worked at a children's film company, Arthur the Aardvark, Caillou, all those. Yeah. So that was the company. And it got really big, really fast. And at one point I was setting up a VPN. It's like everyone does a VPN. Yeah. But this time it had to be homemade VPN between us and our office in London in the UK. Because the company grew so fast, we had an office in Europe. And so I was in Montreal, and I was trying to figure out how to get this VPN because the people in London had to use software that was in our Montreal office and yada, yada, yada. So I had to go to the UK. And it was the first time I'd ever gone to Europe. And there was all this haggling around the dates and when I was going to go, and Sprint Canada kept changing their minds. And finally I threatened them. I said, look, you tell me when, and you're going to pay if I have to hang out for a week or what. So they got really serious, and we nailed down a date. And of course, former agoraphobic, the notion of being, 40,000 feet surrounded by aluminum with a lot of air between my ass and the ocean was not awesome. There was a bit of anxiety to get on a plane, flew over, landed in London. There was a chauffeur holding a sign with my name on it. We were like High Street, Kensington was where the office was, spent a week, did all the stuff I needed to do. Sunday afternoon, flew home. And at that time, Air Canada at Heathrow everyone was jammed into this one small room. It was like the terminal where Air Canada was like off to one side for some bizarre reason. Load onto the plane. It's the longest 2 hours of my life because we left at 1, we landed at 3 local time. I'm in customs. I'm 3 people from the line, and I hear a voice in my head, look left. Is that Karen? That can't be Karen. I think it's Karen. But that's her mother and that's her father. So I leaned over and I nudged her. I said, hey. And we hadn't seen each other in a decade at all. Nothing, no contact. I heard rumors that she was living in New York. And I'm like, don't you live in New York? And she's like, yeah, but I was with my parents. And I said, well, where did you come from? She said, London. Okay. She said, yeah, my brother just graduated in Oxford. And so we flew over. And I said, when did you fly out? She said, last Sunday. And I said, Karen, we went to Europe together. And she was like, oh, yeah. Point being, I was so exhausted, I didn't have a voice in my head. I was present to the moment because I was tired and frustrated. However you get there is okay. But the voice came, and it wasn't my voice, and I paid attention. The question is, how often does the clutter of the internal voice mask the kind of the mojo voice? And how often do we not pay attention? And it was just look left. I was 5 feet, 7 feet from the customs line. And then she went into customs, I went in, and I never saw her again. And that's the story, but that was the closure that I never got.
I love
So
that. I love that. And it didn't even seem to like register with her, but you were like, haha, we went to Europe
yeah,
together.
she forgot.
Not
I'm sure she
intentionally,
forgot.
but yeah. No, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I'm so
But
glad you got that closure too.
it was a gift for me because I was paying attention. Not her. No.
Well, it's also
and
everything's working out for you. It's all for you, not to you, but for you. Yeah.
no, and here's the fun part of the monkey brain. It didn't happen because we were on the same plane both ways, right? Same airport, same plane. Didn't figure it out. But had I bumped into her on the flight over, the story would have had a different flavor to it. It was the last nanosecond of possibility where we chatted for about a minute and a half. And then, so that's kind of that's my sell sheet on presence. That magic happens when you're present. Magic happens when you're in Alaska, 50 kilometers in Alaska, and you accept the reality of the situation without going, oh no, what if too much.
I would venture to say that the magic is always happening because we've all had challenging times, right? Is there anybody
Yep.
in here that's never had a challenge? And yet here we are.
At the apotheosis of our existence.
Rate. Yes, like here we are. It's all like everything worked out up to this moment. We have a 100% success rate.
Yeah. If you're here, that's what I used to do. I used to give and say, so if you manage to make it here, put up your hand. Which is kind of the same thing. It's like we manage to make a choice and to will ourselves into a circumstance. We make all the appropriate arrangements. And what I used to do this thing on goal achievement, goal getting, and I remember doing the same thing and saying it was about 150 people. I said, "Have you, if you're here, put up your hand." And if you were on your way here and the light turned red, did you suddenly go like, ugh, and go home? You have all achieved a goal by coming here, and you've overcome obstacles. You've overcome all the things that life has thrown in your way. I mean, Denis has without overstating of the whole Denis piece, he would go on Friday afternoons. Friday afternoons, he helps people die. That's kind of his schedule. And they go, oh, my aunt is passing away, and he's like, Friday. And he was like, it's amazing how many of them wait till Friday. But he would do hospital visits at the Heart Institute in Ottawa, and he would go and try to sneak in to help people. And he said that if he couldn't make it 3 times, if for whatever reason he was thwarted 3 times, he accepted that as an indication that he should just bail and do something else. He told me a fun story. He was in Mexico and he was flying back here, and he tried to book the flight 3 times, and it all fell to crap, and he just didn't get on the plane.
That's exactly what happened to me for Hypnothoughts last year. Identical. Yeah. And I couldn't go. But it was 3 times. And after that, I was like, I could probably try again, but never mind. Yeah. I totally agree with Denis. You reminded me of something that I haven't talked about in a while, but I just wanted to share this because it kind of fits in. And that's, the people who have the tendency towards self-sabotage, or they're like every time something good happens, something bad comes and takes it all away, right?
I may be related to some of those. Yeah.
Well,
People.
so I used to be that way too. I was agoraphobic. So yeah. All right. Anyway, so, but I was like, what if we just have the cycle backwards? Maybe it's every time something bad happens, something good happens to then like help us to reset. So it's not that something bad happens to take the good away. It's that something good happens to help us reset after the bad. And if you wait long enough, there's always going to be something good. So like maybe the cycle isn't that it's all going away. It's that it's all coming for you.
It's all the insight that I shared it, and I won't beat the horse too much. If you recognize that you're at the apotheosis of your existence and that you are blessed to have made it this far for this long, and you are present to that, then what are you complaining about? What could possibly be what could be the problem? But we need to recognize these things that are so self-evident because we've been so distracted, right? And ultimately, that's a really good pathway into presence, is that recognition. A good pathway into presence is to quell the internal dialogue, to just and it's how to put it, meditation is an expression of that, the quelling of the internal dialogue. And what happens, here's the awesome thing, we are such morons that when the internal dialogue emerges, we think we're bad or stupid or something. We get upset at ourselves. Oh, I just failed meditation again. it's just evidence of, go back to it, because you get to those states, that state that I got to by dint of this crazy unfashionable French Canadian dude putting his hands on my shoulders and by my ears, and I entered a state of grace. And there's no other way of putting it. And I offer to you that the state of grace is always available, and you don't really need the French Canadian unfashionable guy with the Birkenstocks and white socks. Is finding your way to presence in whatever way. And it's funny, Kryssa kind of turned me, what's his name?
Bill Bengston.
Bill Bengston.
He arrived at a similar crux as you and took a similar route just by watching another healer who had it, and Bill didn't, but the healer did. So he followed him around for 30 years and just figured out like, well, I don't know how to do what you do, but I'm going to figure out what you're doing. And so it's very similar. I think you guys, you came upon that state, different ways, different, methods, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The end state is the same, is similar, but I actually tripped across that healer Bengston, Bill, the Bill guy, in Lissa Rankin's book, because of course I'm on this big healing jag now, because I'm training the Hümmo Method at the end of the month for the first time ever, like for real, and I'm like freaking out.
Okay, just because I want to like embarrass you a little bit further.
Oh, awesome.
No, I'm just kidding. When I first reached out to Hugh to see if he wanted to be the spotlight guest host this month, he was like, so like, how do your followers feel about woo? I was like, bring it on, baby, bring it on. How do you guys feel about this? Does he have to be in any way concerned or nervous about sharing this scientific meets woo bridge? No.
Here's the fun thing. I have a sister who's a Reiki monkey, and I'm like a second Dan Reiki monkey because she taught me Reiki. And as a trainer, I've always been on both sides of the argument, because I've said to, I would say to my students, Reiki's just the biggest crock of shit, but it works really, really well. So I would have a statement that sits on both sides of the line with a bit of an endorsement / testimonial. And I forgot what I was going to say. Hümmo Method, right? Hümmo Method, the connection with Bill Bengston, for some reason I'm blanking on his name all the time. is it does create a similar state of, I'm going to use a word that he doesn't use, this kind of charged euphoria that, and when you mentioned him and I read about him and I thought, huh, I wonder if that's the mojo, that there are certain aspects of the Hümmo Method that produce this feeling of intense presence that lasts, but there's this tie back a little bit. I had an insight every 4 years or something. I learned something new about NLP, and it just clunks my knowledge down a whole deeper level. And the insight that I had 5-6 years, whatever years ago, was the outcome of a really sweet piece of NLP or hypnosis is this sense of presence. Before I knew what presence was, this sense of this absence of an internal voice, and this deep sense of emanating, surfacing joy. Because joy, my understanding, is the natural state in the absence of all the crud. You clear out the crud by turning off the internal dialogue, and joy is allowed to emerge. And so my insight was that's a piece of NLP produces that. And my further insight is that not a natural healing state? Because if Denis does his math and comes to 1.8 million minutes.
What did you call it again? I want to write that down. State of something euphoria. What was it?
I don't know.
Oh, I should have written it down when you said it.
Have you met me? Training with me is so frustrating. What did you say, Comerford? I don't know. It just came
Luckily,
out.
this is all being recorded, so we can all go back and watch it again. But there
you go.
No, because like, remember we were talking about that, and I just found it on our little text message, chat. And I was saying that with the Bankston method, it's this sense of anticipation and excitement with no expectation. But I feel like that's very similar, right, to euphoria.
Yeah, it's
close, adjacent.
I'm guessing they're cousinish,
if
not siblingish. I don't know. But that was the insight.
Charged euphoria. Terry remembered. Thank goodness we have somebody in here with good memory.
That sounds like somebody I went to elementary school with. Charged euphoria. That the insight I had from Denis is this relentless presence is a gateway, and it is inspired by NLP, hypnosis. What it does is it just clears out the internal dialogue, which then allows something natural to occur. Our egos are our friends until they're not. So I'm gonna offer that emotion, and none of us has ever had emotion get produced because of the internal dialogue, right? So I would say that the ego, the one that produces,
we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah, never happens. But that's where it comes from. The ego generates the emotion, which creates the crappy healing state, the lack of a healing state.
And then we give it a narrative by kind of trying to figure out why. Yeah. Why is this happening? Why do I feel this way? Why? And then, down the rabbit hole we go.
What was the line? Denis, part of the reason why I am able to speak about this is I told you I had these grounding workshops, and Denis would come, and one day one of my students brought his wife, and through all these coincidences, I found out a couple of years later, somebody said, "Oh yeah, Paul's wife is a medical intuitive," and I'm like, "What? Really?" And so I reached out to Paul. I said, "Your wife's a medical intuitive?" And he goes, "No, she's just been hanging out with Denis for the last couple of years." And I'm like, "The bitch has stolen my lunch." Joanne is yeah, she's great. So she's kind of like my sister from another mister, and we're like, like she is a unicorn in the tradition of Denis. I'm just this guy going like, I'm really curious about how to do that. But she does it And she's Mojo. She's a soccer mom in Waterloo, Ontario. She would kill me to hear. She can't
She's
take
probably
that
going to
out.
watch this.
Take
So,
that out in the edit, please. Please take that out. She'll murder me.
Nope, it's called Hypnotherapy Uncensored, Hugh.
Oh shit! But she is, yeah. But she and I have spoken a lot about the stuff, and she's articulate, but she articulates the information in a different way. But ultimately, my thesis, writ small, is learn to quell the internal dialogue in any way, and which will then promote a healing state.
Maybe not so much drugs or alcohol, like find a better way.
If you can muster it, yeah. And just this idea of presence, and presence can be as simple as just being very mindful of texture, touch, smell, bring you to the moment. And the nostril dominance tricky thing is it's really weird, but it really is effective. And you can I think the worst I ever had was 10 minutes that took me to switch nostril dominance. But if you're having trouble falling asleep, that's a good way to do it. Get your parasympathetic system online. And again, I'm reading from a vast number of different inputs on just to give put more meat on the bone of the Hümmo method. Is the when the parasympathetic nervous system is online from other areas, it has been called the healing state.
And so it's self-healing, but it's also
yeah.
a state that Danae was stepping into and Joanne steps into in order to help heal others.
Yes.
But for the muggles, it might be more about,
of which I am the primary muggle.
No, but you're the one who is able to bridge the language between the ones that have the gift and then the muggles. And that's a necessary thing. I tend to think of that as the scientific muggle, right? You're following certain methods and doing research and figuring out how to translate this magic into the 3D. Before we go, and I'm not trying to rush you, but I want to make sure that people get your link, because you had a like a special offer or a promo or something that you were going to give them.
If you go to
here, I type it if you want, or you can, you type it, you're faster.
I am actually. Go to hummomethod.com. Pardon me. And the name's a joke, by the way. I was in a Hümmo. Herbert Benson, the guy who created the relaxation response, was a Harvard researcher. He went off to Nepal and studied monks who would wrap themselves in wet sheets and do this type of breathing called Hümmo, and they would steam the sheets off of their body. They would have races to see who could dry the sheets fastest. Hümmo breath work was created in order for these monks to be able to survive meditating all winter long in caves in Tibet, Nepal. And so I
thought it had something to do with humming. So that's cool. Go ahead.
No, so I'm in the workshop. I can't understand a word that the guy is saying. And I have two people who I know we're chatting, Albert Nirenberg and somebody else. I think you know Albert. And we were chatting in the background. And I said, if I ever invent a breath work, I'm going to call it Hümmo after me. And then this all came out and I'm like, fine.
But you had the name before you had the method.
Yes, but it's a made up word, so it's kind of helpful, right?
Yes.
But HümmoMethod.call, Hümmo heals, and it's $100 discount off of the tuition. It starts April 26th. It's a Saturday, Sunday. And
so
then
it's Wednesday. Live. It's all live.
It's all live. Okay. It's going to be recorded, and you'll have access to the recordings. And this is for you to be able to use it on yourself, by yourself, and with others. So this is like it's practitioner training. And
what are the hours? April 26th and 27th.
3 hours. It's like 10 until 1.
What time zone are you in?
Eastern. Pardon me. It's in 3 hour chunks, because I don't know about you guys, but I learned
that'll work well for the
during the
Europeans.
pandemic, the 3 hours is pretty much the max for everybody, because then you get stir crazy. Till 1, and then there's a Wednesday evening from 6 until 9, I believe, or 7 until 10.
You're doing it twice?
Oh no, there are 10 sessions planned. The whole schedule is more ornate. It's on the website.
Okay. I won't try to put it all in here then.
Yeah, click on the Hümmo Method, click on learn more, and then it's all there. It's a very, very basic website.
And I'm going to ask you this because you're going to get asked this 100 gazillion times. Will there be a
Capricorn.
replay?
What? Oh,
Will there be a replay?
uh-huh.
Okay.
It's inside.
It doesn't matter how many times I say, yes, there's a replay. People always say, is there going to be a replay?
But
so
is there a
I
replay?
just get it out there. Yeah.
Yes. And some people have said, I can't make the first couple of sessions. So the first couple of sessions are going to be more introductory, informational, bringing people in. And I suspect, again, I've never taught this before in a meaningful way, in a real way. So I don't know how to teach it. So I've scheduled it for 10 3-hour sessions. I suspect the last 3 or 4 will end up being just practice sessions, different applications. Here's how you use it. By the way, I used it. I was patient 0, and I used it. Is an embarrassing story for another time. I used it on a childhood trauma that nothing else had worked on, and it just done. Then it's worked on.
I'm going to really try and be there myself, actually.
Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual issues.
Wow.
It's helped through. And I say that as gobsmacked as anybody. Like I don't, this is the edit this part out, is I had to apply it. I had to apply it to the imposter syndrome of me calling myself the originator of a healing modality. Because like I'm an NLP, like what, right? So the application on that, now it's like, all right, out of the closet, who cares?
I get it, man. The same thing happened with quantum journeys hypnosis. I was like, what am I doing creating a whole hypno course? But it just kept coming. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But like, so I get what you're saying. It was more like a gift as opposed to like, oh, I came up with it all, it was more no, it was a gift. And it was my job to just bring it into the world. So
it all came through me so fast. I wrote the book in about 4 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. In any case,
I'm excited. I'm really hoping I can be there for it. I have like something happening on the 26th. Unfortunately, I have like a big group thing locally, but
what we did now is probably a better introduction than what I'm going to do in 3 hours on the 26th.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, it is already 6 minutes after, and I don't want to keep anybody, but if you have anything else that you want to share, like take a minute. No, you got it. I don't want to.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for hanging out and sticking around and listening.
At the apotheosis, I put the definition in there too, because I was like, what does that mean exactly? Yeah. Like, I'm a pretty verbose person, but I was like, I don't know that I know the definition of that word. But anyway, yes, here we are, all choosing to spend this hour with you and all of us. Thank you, everyone. It was lovely. It's an honor. It's always an honor to have you guys here. This is going to go up on YouTube and in the Facebook group. So you'll be able to catch them and like upload YouTube, download Facebook. That's why I'm doing this.
There you go. Gotcha.
So you'll be able to rewatch this again. And there's also 4 years worth of these monthly spotlights from all sorts of amazing trainers. So yeah, go check out the YouTube channel. All the links are in that chat somewhere. Thank you so much, Hugh. This was such an honor to have you. I'm really, really glad that you had the time and that you could share this with us. And I'm super excited about this method because honestly, even though I have come up with this whole thing myself, there's one sticky little thing that quantum journeys hypnosis has not even been able to take care of. And I think it's because it's me, like because I'm the one doing it. So I need another method for this one thing. And I don't know if this will work or not, but I'm going to go into it without expectation. And I'm just going to be curious. And I'm going to be like, we'll see what we see. You've already been a huge wealth of information just today in an hour. So I'm sure that your class is going to be just absolutely banging.
Everything after this is downhill. Just saying.
I don't believe that. I think you have more apotheosis because it's Latin, right? So is that what
sounds like a jousting term? I will apotheosis.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Hugh. Take care.
Thanks. See ya.
Oh, we didn't even ask questions. Before we go, is there anybody that has a burning question? Sorry.
Bring it.
We just went a little bit over, and there was one time that we went like way over and people got mad. So I'm always cognizant of the time. Any questions? Oh, Arlette says, thanks, Hugh. Okay, not a question. Right. And Lou says thanks. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll see you. Hopefully I'll be there too when the class starts.
Cool.
How long is a session? Julia asked.
3 hours, meaning a training session. The training sessions are 3 hours only. And that's why there are 10 of them scheduled.
And then once we have the method down and we're maybe doing it on ourselves or others, maybe that's what she's asking too. I don't know. But
yes, I was thinking that. So I have two answers to that because I'm that guy. I was in a hospital emergency room past the initial triage. At the very beginning of this, I stabbed myself in my fleshy part of my thumb.
What did you do that for?
Because I was an idiot.
God.
And there was a woman in some sort of distress. She was moaning, elderly woman. She was really not having a fun time. She was, and her husband was, and I hate to use the term useless, but he was overmatched by whatever she was experiencing, and he just couldn't really deal very well. And so I did the method on her, and she quieted right down, and then she started talking to him like nothing was happening. Maybe that was something that came and went. I don't know.
I imagine it's probably going to be different. Like with the Bankston method, some people it's 5 minutes, other people it's like a couple hours. It's different with each, collaborative energy, whatever.
And by the way, when I work people through it, I teach them more than I do it on them. I don't do it on them. I teach them to do it themselves.
Oh, that's lovely.
And then, hey, you have a different type of issue. Here, let me craft the approach for that type of circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Each circumstance is unique, and it requires a different approach. Because, and like really simply put, like, and I swear I'll make it very simple. Any trauma that you have has what I call, it has aspects of it that live inside of your body and outside in space along your timeline. So your perception of your perception has to be codified and brought into consideration in the method. So if I think about my trauma at the hands of my brothers, it exists in my visual field or in my perceptual field somewhere out in space. There are three people involved. There are my two brothers, and then there's that person who used to be me, or I used to be. There's the circumstance. There's where it lives in my body, how I perceive it in my body right here, right now, 5-10 years later. And all of those aspects are targets in the methodology, because I send healing to each of those micro aspects, if you understand. So that's where there's a uniqueness to every circumstance, because I have to help. I might have to get help as the person receiving it to mine all of the varying aspects of it, so that everything is up on the table for processing, for dealing.
And Terry wants to know, have you used this with animals?
My cats get annoyed. So yes, it's very strange. Joanne, my wife, has Ralph is like the cat, right? And Jennifer loves Ralph, and Joanne calls Ralph the grounding cat. So it's Ralph the grounding cat. When I work on Ralph, when I do it on Ralph kind of gets up and kind of just takes off, which I find I don't know why.
Well, he's probably like, I've already got this energy healing crap down. Don't mess with my mojo, man.
Exactly. It's my mojo. Yeah, not your mojo. This is about me for once. That's what, Ralph. But yes, that's my experience. And I haven't done it. In fairness, when the cats have been ill, they don't take off when they're not feeling well, and I have done it. And so they've gotten better. I mean, again, no evidence. It's just experiential, but that's
anecdotal, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, I came up with apotheosis, so I don't feel bad.
The Bankston method works well for animals too, because it's one of those things where it's not based on the belief of the receiver. It's not a placebo effect.
It's something's emanating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's about the energy itself.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. Wow. Just because we can't see it, don't mean it's not there. So.
Yes, especially with the twang. That makes it that much more emphatic.
Well, I'm in North Carolina, so I gotta honor the roots. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next month. It's always the first Wednesday of every month. We have a different spotlight guest host. I don't know who next month is going to be yet. Hugh, maybe you can recommend somebody. Hopefully I'll see you in late April.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.